If you want to tell a good story, one that makes people feel pressure and understand the stakes, and that takes all of the broad open-endedness of the options that we have in the world, including oftentimes the option to just sit and do nothing and see if things work out. If you want to take all of that and condense it down into a good story that helps the viewer, the reader, feel the pressure of the situation and feel collegiality or get inside the head of the hero and have to wrestle through the tough choices the hero has to wrestle through. If you want to do that, you usually have to depend on some sort of time crunch that gets built into the plot, maybe multiple time crunches. And when you really think about movies or books or whatever, you might think, well, yeah, but a lot of deep, artsy-fartsy character studies and things like that, they don't really have a time crunch. But if you go and dissect almost any story, the pivotal moment in the story will often have some sort of in-the-moment pressure. And the more action-oriented a story is, the more hero-centric a story is, the greater the time crunch pressure will be and the more immediately recognizable it will be to an outsider. Now, I just went and pulled up the list of highest grossing films ever, because maybe you're like, sounds like you're making stuff up, mister. Or even if you're not, I haven't had enough time to think about it yet, and I'm not prepared to assent to what you're saying. So let's see. We're just going to go look at unbelievably popular stories that people have paid gajillions of dollars to watch. Number one, all-time highest grossing film. Interesting. I didn't know this was still true. I thought this had been surpassed. Apparently it's Avatar. Does Avatar have a time crunch? Well, absolutely it does. The horrible, awful, live out of balance miners, they come with their tanks and their goons and their bombs, and they're going to attack the forest people, and so something has to be done right now. Number two, all time, Avengers Endgame. That one has time crunch within a time crunch within a time crunch. In fact, Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, two of the top 6 all-time grossing movies ever, they both go out of their way to demonstrate that there is a time crunch, even though there's time travel, because they know, as storytellers, that if you throw time travel in there and no restraints on it, it takes away the thing, that is the passage of time and the urgency of certain circumstances that makes stories work. What else we got here? Titanic is number 4. There is something of a time crunch at the end of Titanic. I don't want to ruin it for you or anything, but the boat fills up with water and sinks, and that makes it so the people need to get off of the boat super fast. You can scroll through this entire list and you're going to see the time crunch that is the pressurizing element in all of these things. I mean, heck, even Frozen 2, which I thought was a ghastly film, 13th all time, unbelievable. Even that, isn't there some dam or something that somebody's going to blow up? I don't know, I only saw it once because I didn't like it. The point is, the time crunch thing, it's everywhere. And like so many elements of storytelling, once you've seen it, there it is. You're going to see it all the time. I have stressed again and again and again that I am persuaded that Esther is an all-time great literary classic. And I don't think you achieve that kind of status without pushing the buttons in terms of the plot beats and the characters and in terms of arousing the sense of justice and injustice in the reader without doing the things that you expect from stories that are time-tested and have worked across all cultures and across all languages. And so in Esther chapter 5, there's a very subtle thing that's happening here that takes the reader who's never heard this story before but is just encountering for the first time. It takes the reader from a place of general pressure to a place of very specific, very immediate pressure. There's no way for us to run this again. The situation that is driving the hero's action cannot wait. Heroism must occur right now. There's no more opportunity to sit around and hope that things get better or more conducive or to wait for the likelihood of success to go up, because the time crunch goes from a general time crunch to a very specific time crunch. Esther the queen, who is a Jew, is trying to save her people, the Jews, from a sloppily issued order on the part of her husband, King Xerxes. Now, she's got time, because the genocide is scheduled, to kind of wait to try to catch Xerxes on the right day as we enter into chapter 5. She takes a few days to gear herself up, organize her plan, and she goes in, and she is well received by the king, who seems to be enchanted by Esther's coyness regarding what exactly it is that she wants. It looks like this is going to work out. And further, it looks like as we get to, Esther 5 and verse 8, that she could just keep offering teasing banquets to the king forever until she's sure she's got him in exactly the right state of mind emotionally to finally be like, hey, I need you to countermand this order and make it go away. And as a reader, you're feeling really good, like she's definitely going to win. But then we get this little scene with the main bad guy, Haman, the person behind this evil edict, the advisor to the king, where he walks out of this banquet with Esther and the king. He feels great, but Mordecai the Jew will not honor him. Well, that is what set this whole series of events in motion in the first place. And Haman goes home, and his wife and his friends are like, why so sad? Because that guy won't honor me properly. And Haman's wife and his friends come alongside Haman. They put their arm around him. They're like, hey, champ, whenever I feel bad or like something's not going the way I wanted to in a relationship, I got one simple little thing that I always do, and then I immediately feel better. And that's to simply build a 75-foot high gallows and then have the person causing me problems publicly hanged on it. And in that moment, Haman's eyebrows go up in the middle, and he's like, you know what? I was overcomplicating it. You guys are right, and you're the best. Thank you. And so literally in the next 12 to 16-hour period, Haman goes and commissions a bunch of people to build a 75-foot high gallows to hang Mordecai the Jew before the next banquet between Esther and Xerxes and Haman, where theoretically Esther was either going to ask this question about, hey, could we save the Jews, or ask for another banquet ad infinitum until she catches the king in the right mood. Well, we're talking about the time crunch. Now we have one, right? Because Mordecai the Jew doesn't know it, and Esther the queen doesn't know it, but Mordecai's in big trouble. Sure, it looks to the reader like Esther might be able to save the Jews, but it looks like she is not going to be able to save Mordecai, because before she has any opportunity to be in the presence of the king again, Mordecai is already going to be hung from these gallows and long since dead. Esther is likely to learn about this when she goes to the banquet and looks out off the balcony and sees this family member, the only real kin that she knows, out there on the gallows in that condition. It's setting up to be horribly tragic. Well, now all of a sudden, the parameters of the plot are rewritten. It doesn't work to just string this along as we need to until you finally take the swing when you have a 98% chance of things working out. Something has to happen right now. But this deliverance, at least for the one guy who we know, Mordecai, is going to have to come from somewhere else and not from Esther. And it's really interesting that that's the way the plot sets up, because right here at the end of Esther chapter 4, the previous paragraph, Mordecai indicates, probably unwittingly, that that's exactly the twist that the plot is about to take. Esther 4:14, this is Mordecai talking to Esther. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. He thought he was talking about the fate of all the Jews, and I suppose that still applies, but it turns out to be, in a sneaky storytelling way, prophetic of his own fate. Two new pressurizing elements then have been introduced to this plot as we leave chapter 5 and get ready to head into chapter 6. One, Esther no longer has as much time as she needs to solve the problem. She's going to have to act quickly. But two, Mordecai is now metaphorically tied to the railroad tracks with the train coming around the bend, ready to end his life, and Esther simply isn't in close enough proximity to do anything about it. Relief, as Mordecai said, if it is to come for him, is going to have to come from somewhere else. And we'll see exactly how that plays out in the coming conversations. But before we go, let's have a little bit of fun, because I still got this list up over here, and I want to give you a second. You can just pause it or whatever. See how many of the top 20 you can come up with highest grossing films of all time. Just pause it right now and think. Say it out loud with whoever you're hanging out with there. If you're working out, just start shrieking the names of movies out loud while wearing your sweat-stained unitard at the workout club on the treadmill. Just do that now. Okay, now I assume that you are back. Here we go. Ready? Number 20, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Wow, really? This is clearly not a list of best films. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Oh, wow. I reiterate what I just said. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Black Panther. Super Mario Brothers movie is already in the top 20. That's insane. Number 15, Barbie already. 14, Avengers: Age of Ultron. Then Frozen 2, Top Gun: Maverick. That's a good movie. Furious 7. I've never seen any of those. The Avengers, The Lion King, Jurassic World, Spider-Man: No Way Home, Avengers: Infinity War, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Titanic, Avatar 2, The Way of Water, Avengers: Endgame, and Avatar. This clearly is not a list that is reflective of the finest filmmaking of all time, but that's the list of what people actually wanted to go see. If you got more than 7 of those, I would like to give you an affirming high five, thusly. If you got less than 7 of those because those weren't familiar to you, then you have not wasted your time on movies that aren't that great. And I would also like to give you an affirming high five. The point is, everybody gets an affirming high five. It's one of those kind of situations. Take your participation ribbon and feel good about it. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.